Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to the brand new Fat Muscle Project podcast. I'm John Gorman, your host. I've got Jason Wells in the house. Jason, what's going on, man? How are you doing?
Oh, good, man. You're good. Glad to be here.
Little
Excited to get it going.
little behind the scenes information. We have been trying to get this thing recorded now for a couple weeks, and we've had some internet issues. It seems to be on my end, but we're excited to get this up and rolling. But the most important thing that we got to do right now is we got to kick this off the right way. So if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see. If you're listening on your phone, you're going to hear it. Ready? 1, 2, 3. That's not beer. That's a white trash Monster Energy drink. Because for those of you that know Jason and myself, and you've been listening to the podcast that I've ran over the years, I'm usually starting the show off that way. So not alcohol, but it is some liquid energy to get us through the day. Jason, this has been something you and I have talked about for years, man. So we finally get to start this podcast, and I'm taking the hosting duties to start the first couple, just because most people are familiar with me. Real quick backstory: if you don't know who I am, I own Fat Muscle Project. I'm a diet coach with Team Gorman, and I've ran numerous podcasts. The TNT podcast back when I was with First Form way back in the day. It seems like that was kind of forever in a life ago. But I ran that, and we had 80 episodes there. And then I transitioned over, and we still have Elite Physique University with myself, Kayla, and Jason Theobald, and that's still up and running. So a lot of you listening now have came over from there to listen to what Jason Wells and I are going to put out. But man, we've talked about this for quite a while now, man. And you've been in the fold since, let's talk a little bit about you. You've been in the fold since like 2018 is when you came on as a sponsored athlete, right?
Yeah. I mean, um, man, it's been a while, like since we started, like one of the original ones. But yeah.
Yeah, you have. And that was back when we were just an apparel company. And we're going to get into your story, a little bit about you, and just kind of lay that out. But the first thing is, a lot of people always ask, both of us, right? Because we're both diet coaches. You own two gyms now. I used to own two Anytime Fitness. It's like we've got a lot of the same stuff in common. And we get people ask us all the time, what is Fat Muscle Project? And it's something that, we'll have Leslie on. She was a co-founder. She helped us start this whole thing, her and myself and my son, Jay. But people ask all the time. And fat muscle, obviously, if you're listening, it's PHAT. That's the good fat, right? Not FAT, fat. But
Yeah.
Fat Muscle Project is literally everyone's their own fat muscle project, to where they're trying to become their best version of themselves, whether it's you're the perfect, host for this thing, the perfect co-host, because we're not all physique enhancement athletes. We're not all just dieters, right? So like this is something that was kind of near and dear to you when you first heard about it, right?
Yeah, it was. Really, I mean, like, it resonates with me, like everything we've done, I mean, I got, brick by brick's kind of been my motto since we put on a t-shirt 5 years ago.
Yeah.
It that was probably something, when we were doing apparel, we came out that first, hashtag brick by brick, and like, I don't know why, but it resonated with me because that's really what we're doing with fat muscle for me anyways. And what I see is it's people building a better themselves, a better self, brick by brick, where it's, you know, we're not all genetically elite people, and we got some fat muscle, family that they are, that's awesome.
Yeah.
They're still trying to better themselves too. But it's a group of people to me that are just looking to get better tomorrow than they were today. And, and it creates an atmosphere and a family atmosphere where we're all, we back each other. It's pretty awesome, because that's really what got me through my transformation was, the Fat Muscle Army, man. It's just those people, they see what you're doing and you're inspiring them. And then there's people that went before me that inspired me. And that's what it's all about.
100%, man. I couldn't say any better myself. And the whole idea kind of spawned from, as a diet coach, I call myself Old Man Gorman over here, because if you're watching on YouTube, you can see I'm a little grayer, a little less hair on top, but I'm kind of old school. I've been in this for a while, even though it's only been 15 years. That's a long time, because you see a lot of coaches, they'll stick around for a while, but it just becomes really tough, and they go off and they do other things, and that's fine. But I've kind of seen it all. And what I would notice is my clients over the years and the people that I interact with, it span this whole scope of different people, whether it was just weight loss or whether it was bodybuilding, elite bodybuilding, competitive bodybuilding, or just people like me that just love physique enhancement, and I geek out over it. So this podcast is going to encompass all of that. Whether you're competing, even if you're a coach, you're going to find tremendous value in this podcast, because we're going to like today we're doing a Q&A. We're going to problem solve a lot of the topics that we've learned from. Mostly, Jason, we've made so many mistakes over the years.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just part of it. And I think that's where a lot of coaches, and I think a lot of clients, probably where they end up quitting, because a mistake happens, and instead of figuring a work around that mistake, they quit. They think, "Oh, I failed, so I'm done."
Yeah.
And I think that part of this, our podcast is, obviously we can share some of the mistakes we've made, or that you've made over your 15 years, or me in my short time of 5 years, doing this. And maybe help somebody avoid those mistakes, or maybe how to work around how to get around those mistakes. Like it's going to happen. I mean, I don't care what business you're in, you're going to make a mistake. I mean,
yeah,
it's just what it is.
And we're going to go there as well. Like, this is not just going to be about physique enhancement. We'll talk about business because we're both entrepreneurs. We're going to get into you real quick. And this is a time, man, I hate feeling like we're tooting our own horns, but we've got to at least talk about who we are, what we own, what we've done. And real quick, because there's going to be people listening, they're like, who's John Gorman, for example? I've been a diet coach with competitive bodybuilders for a long time. I've competed myself. I've done powerlifting meets, but really I just kind of find myself as a nerd. So I usually just give a quick intro when I speak. I've been doing this, like I said, since 2007. I've got competitive athletes that are getting close to almost 500 total wins since I've been a coach, which is pretty cool. Not to try and be someone who's bragging, but it just is what it is. Like, numbers, they don't lie. I don't know of any other coach that has that's tracked it. There are coaches out there that have that, but I've tracked every single client that's ever competed, and it's on my Team Gorman Facebook page. So that's kind of a milestone that I'm coming up on. I think we might hit it this year. So I've got a lot of experience, and everything I've done, it's all been learning from failure and experience and finding better ways to do things. Fat Muscle Project, obviously I own that. I do own the Physique Summit Conference with Cliff Wilson. We've been on a short hiatus just after COVID hit, but that is on its way back, and numerous conferences like Elite Physique University. Mm-hmm. And I've written 4 books. 3 of those have been bestsellers on Amazon. So it's just kind of me in a nutshell. Like, I like to do a lot of different things. Podcasting is one of the things I love because I love to educate. So this to me is kind of like the online classes that I do, or the conferences. You get to put out good content, and you just get to help people and problem solve. And that's a little bit about me. But let's talk about you, Jason, because like I said, more people are going to know me from listening to old podcasts, or I've just been around longer. Let's talk about your story. If you don't mind, take people back to the beginning, your starting weight, and kind of where you and I started.
Yeah. So January 5th of 2017, that would be the day that I started. That morning I weighed 455 pounds.
Big boy.
I had, the Thanksgiving before, actually the day of Thanksgiving, I had a gout attack. And, growing up, I was a decent sized guy growing up. I played sports. I was very active, even at 455, but my dad's a big guy. And I just remember when he started having all his health issues, gout was the very first thing that ever happened. And my whole life, I've told myself I had time. I had time to change. I was 37 years old, and I had that gout attack, and man, it shook me. Like, I know gout's not a huge thing. It's not a major health implication, but it shook me to the core.
Scary, man.
It was, so I go to the doctor, and that probably thing is I don't even know if the gout was the biggest thing that shook me to the core. Like, it did, but when I got on the scale at the doctor's office and it read 456 pounds, I actually looked at the nurse and said, "Hey, your scale's broke."
You're like, nope.
And she's like, "No, and this is where, you'll probably hear us talk about like the medical field eventually someday too in our podcast is, I meat with the doctor, and she's talking about the gout, and I'm talking about weight loss, like, hey, what the hell with the gout? What do we do about the rest of us? Like,
yeah.
And, her response was shocking. It was, "Hey, your blood work looks great. So you can be healthy at any weight." And in my mind, I'm going, not until you have a bad day and a heart attack and you're dead. Yep. I had 2 little ones at the time. My boys were little at that time. And so I told her, I said, I understand. Well, I thought I understood the workout process, but I didn't understand nutrition. And so she set me up with a nutritionist there at the hospital. which I literally spent about 7 minutes in her office. She gave me a pamphlet for a diabetic diet, even though I'm not diabetic. Basically told me, watch your carb intake. Don't worry about tracking anything else. Once a week, go have a free meal. And that was my diet.
Yeah.
But she did have me track my food for a week before I seen her. And it was very eye-opening. I really didn't eat that much food, but I was drinking 10 to 12 Mountain Dews a day.
Lots
20.
of sugar.
So you're talking like 3,600 calories a day in sugar. And she's like, hey, why don't we cut that back to 1 or 2? And I was like, I'll just quit drinking soda. Like, it's whatever. And she's like, yeah, most people can't do that. I'm like, well, I'm not most people.
Yeah, she doesn't know you, does she?
Right. So January 5th, that's I met with her on the 4th. The 5th, I started. I literally had, because my wife likes to buy things in bulk. So like we had like 7 cases of Mountain Dew out in the refrigerator, at my garage. And I gave every one of them away. Like I just called my friends up, said, hey, I got this Mountain Dew, come get it. And I went to Sam's and I bought a bunch of like the ice waters and the flavored waters and, unsweetened tea. And man, that's what I started doing. I started doing that. I hadn't started drinking Monsters yet. We'll get into that someday.
You're welcome.
Used to have that started. That first 30 days, I dropped 27 pounds. I was working out 3 days a week. No rhyme or reason in the gym. Like you just showed up 3 days a week and you did whatever you felt like doing. I wasn't doing a lot of cardio, maybe like 10 minutes on the, walking. But when you're 455 pounds, 10 minutes on a treadmill, it's gonna make you sweat.
Yeah.
Your heart rate doesn't take a lot to get up when you're that size. But then I hit the wall. I lost about 32 pounds total, and I was just stuck. Like it wasn't going anywhere. And my niece was one of John's, one of your first clients, I believe.
Yeah, Jesse Wells.
Yeah, and so I've been picking her brain, saying, what do I need to do? And, she's like, well, go to Superstore, get this protein, do this. And then one day she's like, you ought to just call John. And my reaction was like, man, he looks grumpy all the time. And she's like, he's not, blah, blah, blah. And, of course, then next thing was like, I'd always known John as a bodybuilding coach, so she's like, no, he's a diet coach. Bodybuilding clients are just some of the clients he has, but he's a diet coach. So I reached out to John and, he took me on. And actually at the time you really weren't taking clients. You took me on because I was Jesse's uncle.
Right.
So we got started, he wrote me my diet. It was, I can remember it right now, actually 285 protein, 150 carbs, 110 fats. That was my original diet. And, I went into it, dove in both feet. I was extremely rigid on it. And we never adjusted that plan for the rest of the year. And I lost 150 pounds from April 1st till December.
Yeah. So let's pause right there if you don't mind just for a second, because I want to allude to some things that we're going to cover, not on this podcast, but this is a perfect example. We're going to have something here for everybody listening, whether you're Jason at 455 pounds, if that's you listening right now, or you're a coach trying to figure out, hey, how do I set this up? A lot of the times you were a little, not low carb, but you were kind of moderate to lower carb and higher fat. And the reason why I set that up was because you had been drinking a ton of Mountain Dew and going through drive-throughs and stuff like that. So normally when I start someone off, I have them eating more carbs so they can stick to the plan. I knew your insulin sensitivity wasn't good. And that's a topic we're going to cover in detail. It's something you and I both know a ton about at this point. But all you did was stick to the plan. And that's the other key thing that I tell people all the time. They're like, how do I do that without you making any adjustments to my plan? And I've got probably a dozen people every year that will get all the way through a dieting period and I never touch their plan. And they're like, man, you didn't really do much. I'm like, I didn't have to, because we set the plan. The two things that are important are setting the plan up correctly. And that comes with experience, right? Well, we'll give you a system to do that. But the biggest component to everything is you've got to be consistent and track your food. And that's not sexy to say, but dude, you were a monster. Like you tracked your food all the time, like tracked it. Like you right now, out of all the people I've ever worked with, there's 2 people that are up there at the top that I know do not mess around, and that's you and Matt Holcomb. And Matt's a professional bodybuilder. Like the guy is hardcore. And I would put you right up here year round. You're probably the most accurate person I've ever had track. So that was the other key thing, right? Was the diet set up good, but it was you.
I'm a numbers guy. I'm an entrepreneur.
Mhm.
I own businesses like you do. I'm a numbers guy. That's my forte. And so macros to me was a game.
Yeah.
It was just numbers. It was the way I try to describe people about the macro diet is it's like a puzzle, and you got to cut your own puzzle pieces. And um, everything goes as long as you stay between the lines and you hit your numbers, you're good. Now we've learned a lot since then when it comes to flexible dieting.
Oh
We
yeah.
want people to eat. I mean, the honest truth is I lost 100. We lost over 200 pounds, and I was eating Pop Tarts and waffles down here every day. It's cool to say that. Was that the healthiest approach? No, but did it get me where I'm going? It did. Did it keep me on plan? It did. Because I never felt like I was restricted.
Yeah.
I think the diet plan for me was great because, you had your workout days, you had your off days, and then we always had the refeed on Sundays, which was like a treat you always look for. You work your ass off all week, and then you get to Sunday, and that's your treat. Maybe it's homemade pizza. I was very, if I could say to any of my clients, I tell them, it's like, man, just go walk to the grocery store and look at nutrition labels. You'll be surprised the things you can make work in your diet that's going to keep you on point because of things you like. We searched for, all these different pizza crusts that would work. You had hundreds of conversations. Hey man, I found this pizza crust. We try them out and make sure that they were a good product or they didn't mess with your gut. There were so many different variables there, but we found ones that we worked and it worked. We'd have pizza days at your house watching, wrestling.
That was fun, man.
We make our own pizzas because, you can make them very calorie friendly. And that was probably the biggest thing for me, was just going out and researching foods that I can make work. And then I'm also a creature of habit. So I meal prep my lunches, and, I may eat the same thing for 6 weeks because it's easy. I don't have to worry about it. I know I like it. I was always big about going through at Walmart or wherever and looking at all these different sauces and see what the macros are.
Mhm.
You'd be surprised what you find that, to make that chicken taste a little different than what it did last week. That's going to be macro friendly. And those were the things I did that made it easy for me to stay on point. But really, it goes back to what you said. We set the diet up right. It wasn't a restrictive diet. It wasn't something that I just hated doing.
Right. Yeah. You enjoyed it the whole time. And I don't want to, so we could actually spend multiple podcasts on this, and we actually are going to, but what I want to do is skip ahead now. So tell everybody that first kind of run because you've just gotten off stage at the World Championship. So we're going to get to that here in a minute.
Yeah.
Talk to people. You went from 455, and then we ended up dieting down over the course of a year and a half, 2 years, if I remember right, where we reverse dieted you up and you lost. But ultimately, you got down to about 235 was your low for just physique enhancement without you competing or anything, right? It's about 235, if I remember right.
Yeah, we got down 235. We lost right at 220 pounds is what we got down. And I think we did that over a course of about 22 months is what I think I remember, and that wasn't all in a deficit either. We lost 42 pounds at reverse dieting the first time,
Right.
Even though I fought you tooth and nail on it, it worked, but it was a hell of a journey. And you got to dive in both feet. I guess that's the only thing I can say to somebody is, because the scale's moving, and when you're 455 pounds, you can lose 30 pounds and you don't see a damn bit of difference.
Right.
I actually didn't notice any physical change until I'd lost about 60 or 70 pounds because there was so much mass there. Now, could I tell my shirts fit different? Yes. Mm-hmm. But, when you're sitting in front of a mirror and you're looking at yourself with no shirt on, you look the same. Right. And then, about 60, 70 pounds in, you start noticing some differences. And, I'm a big fan of taking pictures. John knows that. I send him pictures all the time. And then that's where you really saw the differences. Well, you looked at your beginning picture to you're 3 months, 4 months in, and you're down, 50, 60 pounds, you start seeing those differences. And that's when it becomes easier. When you can physically see the difference, it makes the whole thing a lot easier.
Yeah, motivation goes through the roof. And I know, so we're going to kind of jump ahead here. You ended up starting a prep after your off season. We prepped you, and you did a couple shows with WBFF, just most recently the World Championships, got you down to 195 pounds, lean, full abs, which is something that we've had numerous people very respected people in the industry that coach people or own businesses. They've echoed the same thing. It's the most incredible transformation I've ever personally been a part of or seen myself. So I know you've gotten that compliment many times. We're going to talk about what it took to compete, but really to set a prep up, because it wasn't something that we could have just dieted from 455. And like, people don't understand, we're going to talk about one of the things that we talk about in future episodes is fat loss in stages, because it takes that and how to reverse diet and drop calories and all that. The last thing I want you to do, just to kind of paint the picture of kind of who you are, because we are going to talk to coaches about the business side of things. We'll probably talk about owning gyms and what that looks like, since you own two and I have owned two and I've managed them before. But tell people what you own, because you have numerous franchises.
So I own 3 Midas automotive repair shops in Springfield. I bought the original 2 about 7 years ago. I opened my own about 4 years ago. And then I also own 2 Anytime Fitnesses. One I bought from Monty Pierce, who was the original owner, and then I bought the second one from John earlier this year, actually. So I have the 2 in Springfield. I also have Gold Standard Weight Management, which is my diet coaching company that I do. I don't obviously don't promote that a whole lot, but I do have that, and I do business consulting on the side. Just there's no business, but I do mostly in the restaurant sector. That's where I come from, is doing business consulting for restaurants. So
Yeah, I mean, how important was that to you, getting up to 455 pounds, driving around, being the food guy?
man, it's funny. I think when you're in the food business and you look like that, it's kind of like being a sumo wrestler. The bigger you are, the more they think the better you are at it. Because I sold the heck out of food, but I don't know if it was because people were scared of me because I was such a big guy, or they're like, man, this guy knows his food, because well, look at him. So,
Well, all joking aside, you and I were both just down to earth, just love to help people. And that's what this whole podcast is about. We're never going to have sponsored ads. We're never going to have people paying to have their stuff on the show. It's nothing about that. It's just because if we weren't recording this, we'd sit down and do it anyway. Like, we just find a way. We just love doing Q&As and stuff like that. And that's what we have today, Jason. We've got 4 good questions that people have sent in to both of us. And I'm just going to jump right in and we'll get those knocked out. And that will be the end of our very first episode. So the first question comes in. This is a good one. I like this because this applies to everybody. What are some hacks to help curb hunger, or what are some certain foods? And I think we can both throw our favorite ones out. I'll start out. There's a couple things that I like to recommend to people that are dieting. We'll talk about a couple different sides of this. So when you're stepping on stage or you're getting really lean, hunger is through the roof, because the leaner you are, the higher your signal is in your body. It's a signal from leptin telling your body, hey, I'm not full, keep eating. And it's almost like a mechanism to where your body fat's getting so low, your body's trying to make it feed itself, right? Mm-hmm. So say, hey, you're hungry, you're not full. So things that will help do that are obviously bulk, but there are a couple things that really stop hunger in its track, at least for an hour or two. And that's to have coffee. Coffee seems to blunt hunger. If you're trying to watch your caffeine, just have decaf coffee. Mm-hmm. I remember multiple times when I used to compete and step on stage, I'd run and grab Starbucks and I'd get a decaf coffee, and it would get me through. I was running around doing stuff with my kids because I had little boys at the time, and I didn't have time to be cranky and tired and starving and thinking about when my next meal was. So I'd sip on a coffee for about an hour, and that really helped. And then the other one is, a diet soda. We both obviously love sugar-free Monsters, but the caffeine starts to really add up with those. And that's something that you want to keep an eye on. You don't want to stim yourself to hell, right? Because it's just going to fry your adrenals. But things like diet soda, and they make some that don't have caffeine in them, something about the carbonation really helps blunt hunger. So those are my 2 favorite drinks. And then finally, I've got a food option, and it's sugar-free Jell-O. And that's one that I know you and I have talked about quite a bit. Now, that's something that you used for your prep. You use sugar-free Jell-O, right?
I did. I used a lot of sugar-free Jell-O. Obviously, I did the diet soda. I do a caffeine-free, from a caffeine like Sprite Zero, diet root beer, the caffeine-free, or Sunkist makes a caffeine-free orange.
Yeah,
that's good too. I did those. Man, I did a lot of like EAA slushies.
Yeah, that's a good one.
if you do your water and ice just right, you can actually kind of make it like sherbet. That's kind of what it tastes like. You can use like the Mio uh, caffeine-free flavoring in it with it,
Yeah.
to change it up. But I did a lot of the EAAs. That was about a nightly thing for me. Was that. I mean, I was pretty good about spreading my food out. Especially with protein. I know a lot of people get tired of drinking a protein shake at night. I figured out ways to use, our protein, like the Reese's from, Fat Muscle, to make waffles, So there's really, the only thing in it is protein. But outside of that, man, is Jello. I used a lot of Jello, a lot of EAA smoothies. The EAA smoothies are nice because you can make a lot of volume. It's just ice and water and EAAs, and our EAAs flavor really well. I mean,
Yeah. So let me explain to people what that is, because if they don't know what EAAs are, that's essential amino acids. We make a product called the EAAs Plus. Basically, you drink it around. It's almost the same as drinking protein, but it's not. But it's the amino acids that you would get like if you eat or drink protein, right? So it's just all the way broken down. So it doesn't. There are quote unquote calories in it, but it's not something that's going to offset your diet. So if you have a scoop of, like, we have blue raspberry EAAs, or we have sour gummy, you throw it in a blender with a bunch of ice and you blend it up and you can eat it like a slushy, right? And that's what Jason's talking about. That's what EAAs are. So it's like eating and drinking something without really the calories there that are going to make a difference. And I know the sugar-free Jello, Jason, there's a difference between the 10-calorie cups and the
yep.
box Jello. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So, Walmart, all of them have the sugar-free Jello cups. I mean, yeah, they're handy, but all those that I found had between 5 and 10 calories. Well, and the portions aren't very big, like, to me, they're not like, I'm a big foodie. So, I mean, it wasn't very filling to me. But if you use the box, I mean, you can literally eat the whole box.
Yeah. And they have literally like 10 calories. Like it's
Right.
hardly anything at all to
Yeah.
eat the whole box. But those little cups, if you're really hungry, and if you're a female and you're only eating 1,200 calories at the end of your diet, because for some reason the calories had to get that low, because there are times that you have to go there. If you eat an extra 80 calories from Jello, like now you've gone from 1,200 to 1,280. And if your body's starting to stall, like all those calories start to add up is the point. So the box Jello is one that we found really works the best.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a staple. That was just about in every, I'd keep two boxes made up in the refrigerator at all times.
Yeah.
As I finish one off, I just made another, put it back in the fridge. So,
and the thing with dieting that I kind of want to talk about before we go on to the next question is, for competitive athletes, getting super lean, hunger is something you have to embrace and deal with, because it doesn't go away. This is just to get some kind of temporary relief, because you're not starving. You're about to eat again in a few hours, but it's kind of annoying. And if you're stepping on stage, it's just brutal. And that's just part of it. For the rest of us that aren't dieting to get on stage, hunger is kind of part of it. And I tell people embrace it, because it lets you know, to me, it's a good sign that you're getting leaner, and the leaner you get, the more hungry you get. So it's not so much about how much food you are eating or you're not eating. It's more about your body fat levels and getting that signal that tells your body, hey, I'm not full, keep eating. So it's a good thing. So just embrace it. A lot of times I see the most disciplined people, they can just buckle down and they get comfortable with being uncomfortable, and that's just part of it. So it's never like you're starving for a whole day. So it's not like you're fasting or anything. That to me is brutal.
I always looked at it like a badge of honor, man. It was like, if I was getting hungry, I knew that I was doing my job and my diet. Like, hey, it's working. This is just part of it. And the thing too is, when dieting from a show standpoint, from a dieting from when we were just losing body fat, both times you get hungry, but obviously the prep was a little more dramatic on the hunger side, especially the second show as I got even more leaner. And I just try to stay busy, and in my life it's not that hard with little kids, and I run just about every youth sports program there is in the town I'm from.
Yeah.
So I had things to keep me busy. There was always something going on. I'd mow my yard 4 times a week just to keep my mind off of food.
Yeah.
So,
this next question is a good one. And at some point, we'll probably do a whole episode on this. I have numerous time on other podcasts. And it's something I send out to my clients too when they ask me. I'm like, hey, listen to this podcast. So the question is, I've been doing really well dieting and sticking to my nutrition plan, but sometimes my weight will spike up and I don't know what causes it. Sometimes it's even 2 to 3 pounds. Can you explain some things that may cause this to happen because I'm not cheating on my diet? This is always a battle. It doesn't matter if you're a dieter and you're keeping track of your scale weight, which everyone should, by the way, because it's a tool. It doesn't mean you're making progress or not. It's a tool to use. Oh, Jason, we as coaches, we deal with this. I know you and I have dealt with it, but you're obviously advanced to the point where you don't let it really mess with you. We can kind of drill down and figure out what it is. Well, let's talk about some of the things that will cause weight to go up. You go ahead and start off with a few, and then I'll add.
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing is obviously your gut. I mean, digestion. I know for me, if I change foods or eat something I haven't eaten in a long time, or I've done it long enough, I know what foods mess with me. But like, it's weird to say if I eat broccoli, I'm going to be up 1.5 pounds the next day because it messes with my gut.
Yeah.
That's a big thing. Water intake, salt intake is a big one. If I eat something that's pretty salty, the next day my scale is going to be up because I'm still going to get my 1.5 gallons of water in a day, but your body's going to hold on to water because of the extra salt. Stress. If I had a stressful week, my weight's going to be up. But here's the deal. Usually at the weekend, I get some extra sleep. By Sunday, it's bottomed back out. So, those are the biggest things for me that always affected my weight was, salt intake, gut, your digestion and stress.
And those really correlate to your body holding water. Now, the digestion piece, it could be to where you're backed up and you're not going to the bathroom, right? Like you're not crapping. So that's obviously going to cause your weight to go up. But the others really correlate with stress. And, to kind of piggyback off stress, normally people are super stressed. They're not sleeping as well. And that's the number one. When I get an email from a client and I see their weight, maybe it's Monday, right? They've slept in all weekend, stress is down, they hit some new lows. Monday, they have to be back up early. They got to go to work. Most people don't like Monday, and their weight's going to be up a little bit because if you're sleeping 8 hours Friday and Saturday and you only sleep 6 hours Sunday night and you get up Monday, anytime you sleep less than normal, your weight's always going to be up. And it's because you don't drop cortisol as much, so you still hold on to water, but you also get rid of a lot of water during sleep through breathing and just through your body temperature. And sweating out under covers, like you may not feel sweat, but you're getting rid of a lot of water. So to get that extra 2 hours is huge. I've noticed I'll weigh 221 on 6 hours of sleep. And last night I got like 9. I just needed the sleep. I was like 218. So my diet was no difference between day to day. The only difference, because I eat the same stuff all the time, the only difference was the extra sleep. That's like 2.5 pounds that I dropped just by getting more sleep. So that's always a big one. And then obviously, you mentioned sodium, but when it comes to high carb days, for example, Sunday is another perfect example.
Yeah.
If you eat more carbs, your body has to hold more water to process those. It doesn't mean that you've gained fat, but I might be 218 at the end of the week. And if I have a, carb up on Sunday and a refeed or a free meal or whatever, weight's going to go up. And if it's a meal that you eat out, you mentioned sodium again. Even if you're eating out, you're still going to get more in tracking your food. For example, if you're someone that can do that, you're still going to get way more sodium than you would if you made it at home. So it's going to always just cause these little influxes. The whole point is you have to be able to understand what's causing them and not freak out about it.
Right. And I know, like with a lot of my female clients, especially the newer ones, when they get to their cycle, obviously automatically goes up. And, it's funny because I could have a client for 6 months and I'll get an email on Monday on check-in. Like, oh my gosh, I don't know what's happened. My weight's way up. And I'm like, well, it's that time, because, obviously you have the client long enough, you kind of have an idea of when they start.
Right.
And especially if they're regular. And it's like, oh yeah, but it seems like you got to talk them off the ledge. But once they get going, they start to understand it, or they'll send you an email, say, hey, it's getting that time. So, but that's a big one for females, is when they hit their cycle.
I'll joke around. You gotta be careful because we're guys, right? You don't want to piss them off because we don't experience this, but we've seen it enough to where I'll have a female in her 40s and she's like, I don't know what's going on. My weight's up 2 pounds. And, I'll ask her, hey, how many of these things are you getting all your sleep? Is your digestion backed up? Is your cycle about to hit? She's like, oh yeah, my cycle's just started, or it's going to start any day. And I'm like, you've been having your cycle for like 20, 30 years now at this point, like every month, like, weight's going to go up. And I'm just trying to explain to her, this isn't something we have to worry about. It's just water weight. It's part of it.
Right.
And, if I can joke around a little bit, then they can relax. I'm like, hey, like you've been going through this for a while now. You know what I mean? I thought of one more, and I think that's probably all of them, unless you think of another one. But soreness from training. So if you're someone that you tried a new exercise or just anything new, right? Or you took a week off to deload, or you just had to travel, and then you go back in the gym and you train hard again. Soreness in the muscle causes you to hold water to repair that muscle, right? The extra muscle damage. So if you're really sore, your weight's going to be up. I've seen people up 2 to 3 pounds. Females, I'll typically notice if they're really sore, depending on their size, 1 to 2 pounds up. Guys like our size or a little bit bigger, 2 to 3 pounds easily, that they're up just in soreness. So it's not really, as long as you know that, your weight's artificial and it's just water.
I see it a lot. Bigger muscle group days, especially legs.
That's a good point.
If I do a really heavy leg day, I may not feel that sore, but I know that if I do a heavy leg day, I'm going to be up 1 pound to 1.5 pounds the next day.
That's a good point, because I've noticed that over the years. I see a correlation between training legs and weight being up the next day, whether you're sore or not. And I think what you said was perfect. It's just a larger body group. I mean, you've got quads, hamstrings, and your calves. And then if you got glutes in there as well, like you got a lot of muscle groups in there that have muscle damage caused that your body has to hold the water. That's a really good point. I can't really think of any others. There's probably some more, but those I think will pretty much get everybody at least on the same page to understand why.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so Jason, this is a question sent in for you. Okay. Jason, what's the difference for you in dieting for the last 5 years to lose over 200 pounds and go from like 455 to 235, or the show prep where you went from 235 to 195? Like what was the biggest difference in dieting for you?
So in all reality, I would say it is when you're doing, just like in the beginning, I was anal, but when you weigh 455 pounds, even with my clients that are bigger, that maybe not as quite as anal on their diet as I am, they still lose 2 to 3 pounds a week because you got more room for error.
Right.
I didn't have the hunger pains when we lost all that weight because I still had plenty of body fat.
That's a good point.
When we went into prep, we started prep at I think we were at 240 is when we started, that November. And the first show we were 210, 207, something like that ballpark. I think we got down to 207. We fed into the show got to 210. The hunger pains were there, but I had to be a lot more diligent about what I was eating, how it affected my body, how I performed, because you're less calories. When I was, we never got below 2,800 calories when I was losing weight, when I lost 200 pounds.
Yeah.
So that's plenty of food, so I never was hungry. I had plenty of energy. I'd say with prep, the difference was finding foods that gave me a better energy output, so I could get through the workout, still have a solid workout without having to, overstimulate myself pre-workout. And then being a little more creative to curb the hunger, because those were all new things for me that I didn't have when we dieted before. Essentially, the idea is the same. I mean, you're in a calorie deficit. It's just, it was quite of a much bigger calorie deficit than what I've ever done. So, and then the second prep we did was even different than the first one because we never got above 212. And then we worked out at 195. Well, when I hit sub 200, and that hunger pains, they came on, and that's when you had to get real creative with like the EAAs and the diet sodas and the Jello. And sometimes, those didn't last. I mean, I remember eating a big bowl of Jello, and about 10 minutes later, I was still ready to chew somebody's arm off.
Yeah.
And so you just, I guess in my mind, I had to sacrifice a little more, because what I would do, I figured out, was if it was 8 o'clock at night And I was starting to get hungry. I ate something like Jello or a slushy, and I went to bed. You
Yeah.
know, I think sleep became a little bit more important with the prep than it was when I was losing 200 pounds. Just because the recovery took more.
Yeah.
I was probably a little more sore. Obviously, your energy level is a lot less. So I think the biggest difference was how I approached my diet, like what foods I ate.
And what a lot of people need to understand, when you're dieting from 455 to 235, you have a lot more room to mess up on the diet. Not that you're really messed up, but you can be a little bit more lax. You can eat out with the family. When you're prepping for a show and you're trying to get down under 10%, for example, you're only eating, towards the end, I think we got you at like 1900 calories, because that's
Right.
where you have to go towards the end.
Mhm.
You don't have a lot of room for error. So if you're 455 dieting 235 and you're just measuring out your peanut butter with a spoon and you're eyeballing it and getting close, you can get away with that, right?
Right.
If you're dieting for a show and you're off 15 grams of fat, that's an extra 90 plus 45. That's like an extra 135, 150 calories that you're off. And your body is it's so stalled out because it's trying not to let you do this to it. It's trying to survive. It doesn't give a shit about how good it looks.
Yeah, your body don't care.
It's trying to hold on to all the fat that it can. It's trying to stall out. So those little things will make a prep. It'll put it on the shelf, right? If people aren't super accurate. So that to me too is, from a coaching standpoint, that's something that I always watch for. And that's where I see a lot of people come up short, man. I really do. I talk about elite tracking, is what I termed it. The people that get all the way to where they need to go are the ones that use elite tracking, and they
Right.
track everything.
Yeah, and that's the way I looked at it. Was being around it for obviously bodybuilding for me personally was new, but I've been around you for the last 5 years, and you're
Right.
considered bodybuilders, and obviously I've picked your brain, I don't know, millions of times. 10 o'clock at night, we're sitting there texting each other. I'm texting you weird ass questions about, hey, what about this? What about that? And it's because
Right.
I'm learning. And your body doesn't care. Like, your body's built to survive. So in my mind, bodybuilding is, you're trying to beat your body's natural progression of what it's trying to do and survive, and you're trying to beat that.
Yeah.
So you're fighting yourself. But knowing in the back of my mind that, hey, if I don't track this, and this is an extra 40 or 50 calories, and I'm trying to get that last little bit of fat off, I held a lot of fat in my side, my flanks, and my back, it's not going to happen. So that was always something for me. Was I knew to get where I wanted to be, this had to be that way. Like, it's pretty heartbreaking if you go from eyeball and peanut butter to weighing it. So
Yeah.
but,
Let's get to our last question. We're going to kind of stay on this theme, and I think this is good, not just for people that might be in the situation that you were in when you're at your heaviest, but if you're a coach, this is going to help you as well to understand the mindset and the process here. So the question is for both of us: when dieting someone who's very heavy, what's the hardest struggle coaching someone through that process? And Jason, you can not only talk about that because you've been through it, but you also coach a lot of people now in this same arena. And then of course I have as well, especially over the last 5 years, because once we started putting out pictures of you on social and you won some contests and things like that, I started to pick up a lot of people that were in that kind of same area that you were in that needed to lose quite a bit of weight. So what's the hardest struggle when you're coaching someone through that process?
really, I think the biggest struggle is this: most of your big people, me included, have tried every fad diet there is.
Yeah.
And most of them, actually all of them, they wouldn't be with me or you, have failed those. And so it's a confidence thing. They're always skeptical. I was skeptical. If you would have asked me on January 5th of 2017 that I'd be where I'm at now, I'd laugh at you. Because it's a belief in yourself. And I was a pretty confident big guy, but most bigger people do have a self-conscious or a confidence issue because of where they are. And then you flip that around and they're very impatient.
Yep.
They want to go from 455 pounds to 200 in 6 months or less, and it's not going to happen, not naturally. And I think that's the biggest struggle with my clients is teaching them the patience part of it, and trying to build some confidence into them that, hey, if they just follow the plan and do what we've wrote out for them, they're going to see success. It's going to be, it's a marathon. It's going to be 2.5 to 2.5 pounds a week. That's what we aim for. And it's a slow process, but you win 10 weeks and you've lost 20 or 30 pounds, and next thing you know, they look back, and as that happens, you see the confidence level start to rise. And I think, I felt it when I went through it. You start feeling, and then, like I said, when you go back to, like I said about seeing the changes, that's when the confidence level shoots up. And it carried over to, man, that's the thing. If I could bottle up and teach it like that and get them to understand that when that confidence level goes up, it doesn't just affect your physical self or whatever, it affects your mental, and it affects how productive you are through your day with your job, your family, and all that stuff. There's
Everything.
there's dieting's more than just a physical thing. It's hard to explain that to people and get them to see it, because I was a business owner before, and things like that. But if they really knew how I felt mentally and how I felt about myself, my confidence got better and better. And I was pretty good about masking my insecurities when I was 455 pounds. But at the end of the day, I was. And that's what I see with most of my clients that are bigger guys or bigger females, is they just don't believe in themselves, and that's one of the biggest struggles we have is for me, from a coach from that point, is getting them to believe in the process.
Yeah. One thing that I can say from coaching people, the most successful people that I have seen is when they have not just supportive people around them, but the most important thing to have around is, if possible, and that's why we hold like a lot of events and stuff. Like we have the Fat Muscle Academy coming up in January. I haven't put any of that out, but it just finalized today. Like we have the dates for our conference, but it's for everybody, right? So, if a 455-pound Jason wanted to show up and be around everyone, that's what Fat Muscle Project is. And the reason I bring that up is not to plug us, but to say, if that's you right now listening, or if you have a client, get them involved being around other people that are driven. It doesn't matter if someone's a bodybuilder. Listen, this is all bodybuilding. It doesn't have to be competitive bodybuilding. Like 455-pound Jason became a bodybuilder, not to step on stage, even though you did, but getting around those people helps keep you motivated. Because Jason, I remember I owned the gym at the time that you now own, and it created an atmosphere there when you joined that there was a lot of people that wanted to jump on and lose a lot of weight, because they kind of linked arms with you and they're like, let's fucking go. Like, I'm part of this.
Well, and one of the biggest catalysts for me was joining that gym, because obviously the gym on Republic Road that you owned is very bodybuilder eccentric, because it's yours, but like just the trainers that are there. I mean, there's a ton of really fit people that go there. And what's funny is that when you walk in there at 400 pounds, it's intimidating, because you're one of like 2 people in the whole gym that's not fit, But what I found out is those people are cheering just as hard for you as anybody else. And they're watching you, and they're watching your transformation. And man, it was every day somebody come and go, man, you're killing it. Look, or you're looking jacked, And those things, man, when you're a big guy and somebody comes up to you and says you're looking jacked, dude, that's a huge confidence builder. Yeah. It made me want to go harder, maybe want to go harder and harder and harder. And then you get people that are watching you that are where you started. They're coming up to you and they're asking you questions. And man, that's huge confidence builder, because it's like, hey, I'm making a difference.
It's one of those things to where it's nice to, and people don't realize you're not going to go in there and get judged. Like people that are in shape, there's a lot of people that are in the middle. Like they're not totally in shape, but they're still on that journey. No one's looking at you in a disgusting, and that's a misconception, especially females. Unfortunately, they get a lot. They think everyone's watching them. They're not. They're in there focusing on themselves. Just come be part of the team. Like if you're in the Springfield area, just come to the gym. Like they can come check your gym out and see what it's about. But it's nice to be around people that are motivated and driven. It's not egotistical. And I know one thing, when the gym was mine and now it's yours, we've done a good job, is we make sure that culture is there. You're not going to see like a lot of the Globo gyms from back in the day. Like it's just not like that. Now people will join gyms like that, not know, but there are good ones out there, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
There is, yeah. Now we work hard on the atmosphere, making sure it's a very positive, and everybody cheers for everybody there. I get messages from my members about other members like, hey, this person's killing it, like you should go talk to them, and give them some encouragement. That's huge. You got other members that they're members, and like all my members are what I consider family and friends, but maybe it's somebody, most of them aren't people that I talk to on a regular basis, that just shoot me a Facebook message or Instagram message saying, hey, this person's new to the gym, but they've been killing it. Like you should go hook up with them and, talk to them. And I always make a point to try to do that, because it's just part of it, and it creates a warming atmosphere at the gym. I don't want anybody to think that they're being judged, because I guarantee you're not.
I want to go ahead and wrap this up. I do, but I also want to talk about some of the topics and guests that we're going to have coming on. So I've got that list pulled up here. So just to give you an idea of some of the topics we're going to talk about coming up, we're going to talk about the mentality of dieting, how to set up your diet, which would be great for coaches as well. What kind of training approach is right for you and how to select that, muscle building hacks, fat loss hacks, refeeds and cheat meals, fat loss in stages, starting fat muscle, and we'll go behind the scenes. That will kind of be a fun little, we'll probably have Leslie on for that. The nitty gritty on being sponsored. So if you're someone that's ever curious about that, we'll talk about that in detail. Advanced supplementation, fat loss stalls, science of carving up, how to maximize your coaching business. And then we'll talk about the whole story of going from 455 to 197, 195 for you. And we've got such a good coaching staff. We've got people like, and I'm going to leave a bunch out because we've got 20, but just giving you an idea of some of the people we'll have on. Obviously, I mentioned Leslie, little badass, everyone that knows her. She's going to be awesome. Cliff Wilson, one of the best coaches in the entire world. He's one of our sponsor coaches, business partner of mine. Pete Fitchin, Jace Lopez, Tony Andanoff. A lot of people in the St. Louis area love him to death. He'll be on as a guest. We're going to have a lot of coaches on. Jacob Klessens actually runs Fat Muscle. He's a dietitian and a coach. We'll do lots of Q&As and cover lots of topics. But man, I'm really excited. This has been a fun first episode. And if you guys need to contact us, just look in the show notes anytime that you listen. You got my email, you've got Jason's links to contact us or see anything that we talk about on the show. But send in, if you ever want to hear a guest or have a question, send it in. And if you want to be anonymous, we can do that as well. But man, this was a fun first episode. We're going to be dropping these every couple of weeks or so.
Cool.
Got anything else that you want to talk about, or you
I'm good.
to go eat the next meal?
I'm ready to go get my next meal in. So
I'm right there with you. So for myself and Jason, we'll see you guys on the next one.
See you guys.